Welcome to the Love Her podcast.
Welcome back to episode 7. I cannot believe we've made it to episode 7. That is such a moment for me to even say right now, but we are so blessed and so fortunate to have all of you guys back here for yet another episode.
I feel like time is flying. I don't know what it is. Ever since 2025 started, I feel like we've just been moving.
I can't believe it's about to be March. March? What's today's date? Like, we are at the end of February when we're doing this recording. So it just kind of feels like we blinked and now we're about to be in the middle of the year.
I know. And I feel like 2025 is really the year of action so far. I feel like, at least for me, 2024 was a lot of like calm and peaceful moments. And so far, this year has just been moving, which is a good thing, of course.
Yeah, that it definitely is the year of action. I feel like it has been a lot of moving parts for me as well. Like I've mentioned in other episodes, it's definitely been the year where I really want to hone in on myself and the things that I enjoy, but that takes action, or the dreams that I have, and that takes action. And yeah, I totally agree with that. We are more in the phase of all of the things going on with our country and all of the things that are kind of going on in our personal lives. But now, what are we doing to improve those is what this year is setting itself up to be.
Yeah, and I think that actually kind of transitions nicely into what we wanted to talk about today. And before we get into it, I did want to ask you, Naya, what's something that you do or try to do every day or maybe every other day to take care of yourself?
I really try to meditate every morning. I try to wake up with enough time, especially in the mornings when I'm going to work and I know that I'm going to be interacting with a lot of people and there are going to be a lot of different tasks and duties that come my way. I really try to find a moment to just sit with myself, sit with my guide, sit with, the space that I'm in and ground myself and be able to try to meditate so that it starts my morning off on a positive note. What about you? What do you do?
I definitely second the meditation sentiment, but I also, something I try to do is just move my body in some capacity. Some days that just looks like a walk outside. For example, today it's 70 and sunny, so definitely going to be doing a nice long walk. Other days it's a hot yoga class, whatever it is, just getting in that movement, because I feel like, especially during the work week or just life in general, things come up and we need to have a way to physically release that stress from our bodies.
Yeah.
So that's something that I do, and it kind of just resets me every time.
Yeah, I need to start moving more consistently. I see that you're always going on walks and things like that, and I see how powerful it is for my own mental when I am in maybe a stressful day or something might be coming up that's overwhelming me. Just moving your body and releasing that stress, just like you said, is so important. In the middle of the day. Like starting the day off with meditation is always nice, but things go on throughout the day. So it's good to kind of have that body reset too in the midst of the reset of the mind that you did in the morning. So I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and I know everyone's obviously job is different, but I'm a really big proponent of a lunch break walk. If you have the flexibility to, even if you work in office, I have a friend that he works in office and he's able to walk around his building, and just being able to get outside, listen to the birds chirp, seeing other people on their walk, I feel like resets you into a place where you're like, not everything is that deep. It really
It really
just
does.
reminds you.
Yeah, that's a perfect reminder because in the midst of your workday, there's so much going on, like I said, and so many different people and moving parts that it seems like we're doing surgery at the level of stress that it might bring us to. And many of us are not, some of us might be, but yeah, it's never that deep. And I think that you're right. This does lead into our next topic of relationships with ourselves and how we decide to take care of ourselves. In previous episodes we talked about relationships with others, but the relationship with yourself is just as important, even more important actually.
Yeah, it is, because I mean, you're the longest relationship you're ever going to have.
Yeah.
And as human beings, it's natural for us to be in our heads and wake up and have so many thoughts. And so it's so important to establish that relationship with the self, because you want your mind to be a peaceful place to be in. You don't want it to be filled with clutter and chaos. And I think in the world that we live in today, it's so easy for our brains to be filled with external things that really are not going to help us on our journey to becoming our best selves.
Yeah, we are programmed to think that we are supposed to take in all of this and to have all of this information and do all of these tasks and please all of these people and be in a state of chaos all the time. So then we go into that mode of that's our regular. But if we take the time to really sit with what is it that I need today? That's something that I've learned recently, that every day I have to ask myself, because I am somebody that gets stressed very easily. It's not my stress, it's just the stress in the space. You know, wherever I am, I can take that on very easily. And so in those moments, I do have to ask myself, what is it that I need? And that's me just continuing to improve the relationship with myself, my mental, my physical, all of those things, because it is so important. And even if that means going to get your favorite ice cream after dinner, or going on a walk, or doing an extra meditation, or going to the gym, or going out with a friend, whatever you need, give that to yourself in that day, in that moment in time where you are feeling chaotic, or even if you're not. And it will feel so relieving that you did that for yourself.
Yeah, and I do also want to say that something that I don't think I was personally taught is that sometimes what you do need is to do nothing.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it is required that you just sit outside and look at the birds flying. Like we have gotten, I think, especially with our phones, I think to some degree we're all addicted to them where we just mindlessly scroll. And we have to give ourselves the chance to just be bored sometimes, to just do
Yeah.
nothing. Because I don't think we're designed to like go, go, go all the time.
No,
We're
it's
not.
not manageable. Yeah, it's not manageable for our mental health, for our physical, or any of it. And I'm not a healthcare provider, I'm not a doctor, but I just hear all of the time a lot of our illnesses and the things that go on in our bodies is because we're not basically having the best relationship with substances, with ourselves, with our mental. So all of that ties in together in a full circle of how your body is feeling and how you treat it and how you manage your day to day, because your body feels the stress of all of these things that a lot of times may not even have anything to do with you. Like, I am a huge advocate of napping. Like, even if it's that you just need to take a nap because you're like, that overwhelmed me. I need to go home. I need to take like an hour long nap and reset yourself, like, and if people judge you for that, that's on them, you know?
Yeah, I actually never used to be able to nap, and in the past 6 months, I've been doing a lot of napping. I don't know why, and they're always quick ones, like 15, 20 minutes, but
Yeah.
I just now have gotten to the place in my life where I can finally turn my brain off, and you feel amazing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like you were somebody that was like, I just can't nap. So that's so good. I mean, for me, I feel like I just mentally I get overwhelmed and my body is like, you have no choice. Like, I will nap anywhere. Like, if I'm overwhelmed, I think that's always just been like a coping thing for me, is like turn off, and that's how I just kind of move through things. And my body will literally be like, nap. Like, you need to sleep. So that's so good that you've learned that about yourself, that that's why you weren't able to do it, is because you kind of struggled at times to turn your brain off, but now that you're able to do that, it feels so relieving afterwards.
And I also want to say that I think sometimes when it comes to caring for ourselves and loving ourselves, we have to understand that our bodies, our minds are ever changing. And if
Yeah.
we want to be able to take care of ourselves properly, we kind of have to move with that evolution. So I'll give an example. Obviously, I went to college. So in college, you drink a lot of alcohol. And the past 6 months, I don't know what it is, but my body's just like, we can't drink anymore. Like, I went out to
Mm.
dinner with Luke last week and I had one margarita and I was like, nope, my body rejected anymore. And that's something that I have to be responsible for noticing. Like my body
Hmm.
used to be able to handle this and now it can't. So what is that telling me? It's telling me that I need to pay attention to this and I need to take care of my body and mind in that specific way.
Yeah, because as we get older, our body does slow down and we do have to slow down with it. Like there was this one time that my dad was saying that he was noticing something with in his health. And I asked him, I'm like, well, have you made any of the changes as far as eating and things like that now that you're getting older? And he's like, no. I'm like, well, you don't even need to go to the doctor. Like your body tells you everything. Obviously, still go to the doctor, but start there. If you're trying to figure out your body's feeling different, I'm starting to feel different, like exploring, like you just said, exploring other options for yourself is part of having that positive relationship with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do want to ask, what has your relationship kind of been with your body throughout your life? That's obviously a very broad question, but in truth, I think everyone, especially every woman, has their own journey with like coming to terms with really
Yeah.
loving themselves. And I'm just curious.
Yeah, so that's actually a great question because I think that that's something that's so important as women that we talk about. Just because, like you said, as women, we evolve so much and society puts so many pressures on us to uphold and looks, standards, whatever it is. I think that at some point we all feel the weight of that coming onto us. And I can speak for myself in saying that in my episode, I talked about how I grew up in an area where I was very, very, very different from the people, the girls around me. So my body was always very, very different from everybody else. And I didn't talk about it much in my episode, but I remember being younger and I've always had a donk. Okay. I just got to say it. I don't know where it came from. I don't, it's hereditary, whatever. Like it's always been something that I've had. And I remember being in school, and because I was surrounded by the opposite race that whose bodies just don't naturally form a donk all the time. So I looked very different than all of the other girls that I went to school with. And at the time, they would call me hippo, and I hated it. I hated it. Yeah. Like they would be like, hippo. Like, it was a joke, but I would go home and I would cry. I would be so upset that, like, I have this donk and I can't do anything about it. So, I mean, I'm laughing about it now, but at the time, it was something that I really, really, really struggled with. Like, what do I do to get thinner, get skinnier, and how do I have this body image and this body type of all these other girls that I'm surrounded by? Like, why is mine so different? And I'll give my mom props in saying that she did used to tell me, like, one day you're gonna really appreciate that because people pay for that. And I was like, "What do
They
you
do.
mean people pay for that?" At the time I didn't understand it and I still took it very hard. So my relationship with my body going into my teen years was still very much a struggle. Like I did have a period where I had an eating disorder and I would eat like 4 apples a day because I thought that that was like one, I thought an apple a day keeps the doctor away, so at least I'm being healthy. And then I also was like, this isn't going to cause me to gain weight. And parents, like friends, parents started noticing it. My dad started noticing it at the time. And he sat me down and he was like, you do realize, like, you're not nourishing your body. You cannot play sports. You cannot be on a cheer team, gymnastics, all of these things if you are not nourishing your body. Like, I'm going to have to take you out of these things if we can't figure out what's going on here. And all I heard was, if you don't get it together, you're not cheerleading. And I was like, okay, like, that's all you had to tell me. So luckily it didn't get extreme. In the moment it was extreme because I really wasn't eating much, but I realized quickly in having that conversation with him that I can't enjoy the things that I love if I'm not taking care of my body. And so going throughout high school, I did quickly shift and was eating more. And it just, luckily, I then started to feel more proud of who I was. And then I think at the time, the culture did shift in society where it wasn't thigh
Yeah.
gaps are in. It is like, you got a donk, everybody wants that. So I
Yeah.
was lucky enough that I kind of transitioned into loving my body more than I did hating it when I was a child. But now that I'm older, my thoughts change so much, and I am so appreciative and I understand the power of words. And if I'm standing in the mirror and saying, I hate my body, that's gonna manifest.
Yeah.
You and I are so big on saying, "We look so dang cute today."
Yeah, we do say that, we do say that.
Yeah, so even changing that mindset, but I'm curious to know because I know that you've also had similar experiences, what your journey has been and loving yours.
Yeah, well, let me start off by saying I was a chubby kid. Like, I will be the first to admit I was chubby, and
It's
I
just
like
baby
to
fat.
eat. No, it wasn't, because I would have 2 dinners, like, I
Fair.
like to eat, okay? And I remember being in 7th grade. I was 13 years
Mhm.
old, and I came home from school one day, and I was laying on my bedroom floor, and I was laying on my side, and I was looking at my belly fat, and I just remember saying to myself, "I'm tired of being fat." And I wasn't, like, fat, okay? And not that that even matters, but just for context, like, I was chubby, but it wasn't necessary for me to have that thought. But
Mhm.
after that, every day I would get home from school and I would run 2 miles. And back then I was not in shape, so that was hard, okay? That was hard.
Wait, you were in 7th grade?
Yes, and I would get home and I would run 2 miles. And when I first started, I would have to take a lot of breaks because I was out of shape.
It's me
And I
now.
and I started drinking a smoothie for breakfast every morning.
Mhm.
And so it started off healthy, you know, I would just not really eat past fullness, and it was very much in moderation. And I ended up losing like 20 or 30 pounds when I was in 7th grade. And then it kind of just evolved into something that wasn't healthy. I
Mhm.
joined this gym that my mom had went to, and they had classes, and the classes were like super intense. And I would do those every day, and I really would start like restricting my eating to the point where I used to wear this heart monitor in the exercise class, and I would be like, I can't finish working out until I hit 1,000 calories burned at the workout, which that like to burn 1,000 calories for someone that's 5'3" is a lot. Okay.
That's that
And
young too. Yeah.
yes. And I would like
Mhm.
obsess over the number of calories in food because I am aware of this now, but I am kind of the type of person that gets obsessed about numbers. So I can't really track those things, but I was tracking it back then. So that was kind of all of 8th grade. It was very much a struggle. I felt guilty if I didn't exercise. I felt guilty if I ate too much. And again, I think it was just a control thing. I don't really think it was as much about my body. I think it was more about control.
Mm.
But then I remember freshman year, I was going into high school and I decided that I wanted to do a sport because that's a good way to make friends. And so I decided to join cross country and immediately hit it off with my teammates. And I remember being with them, and we'd run 10 miles and then I'd see them like pound down food. And I was like,
Mhm.
but this is what we're supposed to do because we just exerted our bodies so much. I realized that I should be eating a lot because I was running 10 miles a day, you know, and I'm
Yeah.
a 15-year-old girl. And so I think having those teammates, a lot of them being older than me, it really helped me with that. Just being like, no, it's normal to nourish your body. You should nourish your body. Um, so when I was running cross country and track all throughout high school, I would say it was pretty healthy. You know, I knew that I had to eat healthy to sustain the amount of miles I was running, but also that I was allowed to have treats and stuff too. And then I'd say when I went to college, when I wasn't running cross country again, there was a different shift because I had to be more intentional about exercising. And so I had to kind of find my rhythm with being intentional about it, but not being obsessive about if I missed a workout and things like that. And then also having the dining hall and like drunk foods and all of that, it was just like a lot to kind of get to a place of equilibrium with my body. But I would say
Mhm.
around senior year, I finally got to a place where I was like, okay, I can relax and I can eat when I'm hungry, stop when I'm full. And I really just got to a place where I was like, it doesn't really matter what my body looks like as long as I'm being healthy.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I can't control my genetics. I can't control what the bone structure of my body is. It's about, am I putting nourishing foods into my body? Am I living with balance? Am I moving my body in a way that feels right according to my cycle? And once I started to really hone in on those things, I started to care less about what my body looked like itself.
Yeah, I totally can relate to you on just the stories. And I don't know if I ever share my story with you. I don't know if I ever
I
told you
don't
about
think
the period.
so.
Yeah, so it's also, there we go again, living very parallel lives in completely different periods of our lives, because I think that I started noticing the things that I could do to get my body to look the way that I want it to look was in 7th and 8th grade, those middle school years going into high school. And it was actually my freshman year of high school where I joined the cheer team, and my dad was like, you're not eating. You're not going to cheer anywhere, like, so it's always very, very interesting to hear how parallel our lives are. And I'm sure many, many women out there have very similar stories to that time that they looked in the mirror and they're like, I don't like what I see, you know?
Yeah, especially that seventh grade, eighth grade time period. There's something with it. I think it's like you just kind of stepped into your womanly body and you're adjusting to
Yeah.
what that looks like. And also, comparison is very big during that time. So maybe you went through puberty 3 years ago, but someone still hasn't gone through it yet. So you're with a group of females, girls, and everyone's body is so different, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like it's important to note, and I always say I can only speak for myself, that although I understand and I can recognize the shift that is made, there are still days where I look in the mirror and I'm like, I don't know about that. Like maybe I need to hit the gym a little more. Maybe because I feel like that mindset is always in the back of your mind. Like that want for control, that, and it takes the constant reminder to myself, just like you said, as long as I am nourishing my body and as long as I'm doing what I should be doing for myself, I shouldn't care about what the number is on the scale. I shouldn't care. Like, I don't even allow scales in our house. We do
Yeah,
not
I
own a
don't weigh
scale.
myself.
Yeah, like I cannot tell you the last time I've stepped on a scale, because I've almost forced myself to get out of that mindset of this is the number on the scale, this is what it looks like in the mirror, these jeans don't fit, this stops buttoning, because I know that I've been there. And I don't want to go back there, because our body is our temple. We just have to take care of it. Everything else that comes with the thoughts that we have about ourselves is what society has put in place. And back in the day where kings and queens roamed all over, and I don't even know the history behind it, but it was, people wanted to look fuller, bigger, because it meant that they had money. So to
Mhm.
look super, super skinny and petite and whatever meant that you were lower, which goes to show that at that time, society was what set the preface of what you look like and how you should look and what makes you better than the next person. So when I think about those moments, I'm like, so you're telling me some man told a woman that she looked bad, and now that's what I'm going based off of? Or some woman told another woman, no, I want to look in the mirror and tell myself every single day, you look so good, girl. And that's what I do.
Yeah, and I think it's also appreciating, again, our genetics in that we are designed to be a certain weight. There is a thing called weight set point, which is basically your body's ideal weight. And
Mm.
it's, if you think about it, not really our place to go against that. I mean, it is because it's our bodies, but what I'm trying to say is if we try to get to a specific weight because society tells us or we tell ourselves that that's what we should be at, but our body does not want to be at that weight because it's unhealthy for us, then we're not doing our bodies a service. We're actually going against their natural inclination. And so
Yeah.
maybe that weight set point for your body is a little bit heavier than you would prefer to be, but that extra fat is needed to keep your reproductive system going, to make sure that you're nicely insulated. It's doing its job. Our bodies aren't just here to look good. or to look good according to society standards. They're here to allow us to function best.
Yeah, because our missions here are so much more than how we look on a day to day. And I know that's so much easier said than done because we all want to love what we see when we look in the mirror. But I think that it's so important to change that mindset. Do you remember when we were younger and we would play the Wii Sports or like Wii Fit? And
Yeah.
it told all of us that we were obese. It like
Yeah.
did not matter what weight you were, how old you were. It just I don't know if it did that to you, but it always told me I was obese. You
I don't
know?
know,
And I feel like always go back to that. And I remember I've always been a super, super short person. So, like I said, I've always had a donk. So that adds on more. I've always been super muscular because I've always played sports. And so I remember even stepping on that and being like, well, this is telling me that I'm obese. Like, this means I'm obese. But that just goes to show that, like, no, like, you can't listen to all of these outside voices, outside words, outside thoughts, because it really is what you need for yourself and your nourishment and what you tell yourself every single day. As long as you are happy and healthy and you're nourishing your body, that should be what's important, that relationship that you have with yourself.
And we're not saying to not have physical goals because I think for a
Yeah.
lot of people, they operate very well off of having goals. But I've learned for me to have goals that are more sustainable and healthy. So, for example, I do yoga a lot. So, my goal may be to do a specific pose that, takes a lot of strength that maybe a few months ago I couldn't do. Or another goal that I have often is saying, okay, today I want to eat 5 different vegetables. Doesn't matter how I get them, doesn't mean it matter if they're all in a salad. Like, I just want to eat a variety of vegetables. Have goals like that aren't about the physical, that are more about the daily effort and habits. Maybe your goal is to get in a 30-minute walk. Do something that's going to be sustainable like that. And I think that will make your health journey overall a lot more fulfilling, but also make it so that you're kinder to yourself.
Yeah, and I think that that goes back to the question you asked in the beginning. What do you do? What is something that you try to do every day? That is us setting our goal for ourselves every single day. And that's kind of proof of us showing that for me, it makes me feel mentally more at peace because I've realized I get very stressed and that's something that I need. And you like to get moving. That's something that you need for yourself, for your stress. And so, for all of our listeners on here, we're not saying take the things that we're doing and, take that as your own because I understand not everybody can sit and meditate. But there's also other ways to kind of slow your mind down if that's what you want to do. For example, my partner, the gym is how she moves. She does like moving meditation. She's somebody who's always go go go, but when she goes to the gym, that calms her so much. And the workouts she does, they stress me out. Like I can't be in there with the gym bros. Like that stresses me out, but that's her thing and that's mine and we respect that and that's her goal for the day and mine is to meditate every day. So, it's so important that you find what works for you. Not based off of anybody else, not what society tells you to do. There's this video going around saying that this is what society wants us to think self care is. And it's like people at Solid Core, it's getting a smoothie from Erewhon, and it's all of these things. But then it goes, this is what self care really is. And it's like being in nature. It's basically showing that there are a variety of ways of having a good relationship with yourself and taking care of yourself. It doesn't have to be working out every day. It doesn't have to be meditating, but you have to take the time if you want to be in a peaceful space and have a good relationship with yourself to figure out what that is that you need.
Hmm. And when you find that outlet that is designed for you, whether it be meditation or a workout class or going for a walk or maybe journaling, reading a book, whatever it is, when you find that, it's going to give you an outlet that allows you to find joy outside of the demands of the day to day. I
Yeah.
think a lot of times why we find ourselves really struggling day to day or not feeling like we want to tackle on the week, not feeling optimistic every day is because we're not giving ourselves the time to play and not
Mhm.
just like watch TV. I mean, really, we're not connecting with ourselves. And so it can, in a way, feel like you're operating like a robot, doing tasks for other people all day, doing things that you have to do. But carve out 30 minutes. That's all it takes to do something to take care of yourself.
Yeah, and I think going back to your statement about feeling like a robot, it's so easy to get into a very depressive state, to get into a dark space when you're feeling like life is mundane and you're answering to other people all the time and you're just moving through the motions. So if you're feeling like life doesn't feel like it has a sense of purpose, or that it's putting you in a dark space, it is so important that you find the light on those days. Ask yourself, what is it that I need today? What is it that I can do to get myself out of this rut? Because I've been there. I used to work from home every single day. I would not leave the house for days because I was just waking up, doing the work for my job, doing work for school, going to bed. Waking up, like obviously I was barely eating in the midst of that time, but that's when I started seeing my therapist, and she said to me, figure out what it was. And at the time I couldn't even figure out what it was that I needed, but then she was like, I'm going to set a goal for you. Wake up and get dressed, because I was just not even getting dressed. Like I would just throw my robe on and start working. And when she kind of guided me into making a goal for myself, like wake up every day, get dressed, I was like, oh, wow, this is so much easier than I thought. And I feel so much better. And then another goal became wake up, go to a coffee shop, like get out of the house, get out of those four walls that you're in this office, because it is making you feel this depression. And when I started doing that, I saw the other side. I was like, why did I sit here all day? Like it felt so much easier than I made it out to be. And I just hope that anybody that's listening that might be feeling that takes this message from us and is able to find that for themselves, because you don't have to be in that rut and that depressive state.
Kind of going along with that, want to say that sometimes doing the thing that is best for us feels very daunting. Like
Yeah.
for me, I'm someone that I will go on my walk every day. I will move my body every day. That's just how I move, kind of in a disciplined way. And a lot of people will say to me, how do you do that? And I don't do it because every day I wake up and I'm like, yes, I want to go on a walk. Of course, there are days that I do, but some days I'd just rather sit and watch TV. But I do it because I know that that will make me feel better 100% of the time. And of course, there are days where I should rest, and I do when that is necessary. But day to day, when I'm working, when I have other things going on, I make it a priority to do the things, even if I don't want to. And this is kind of the message to anyone that feels stuck, that feels like they're in that rut, that feels like they can't move their life forward. You're never going to feel like moving it. You just have to wake up one day and do the things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to let your future self lead. You have to be able to say to yourself, if I do this thing, whether it's exercise, journaling, meditating, if I do this thing, my future self is going to be so glad. And you have to lead with that mindset, because I think all of us that have done a workout before, after it's done, we've never say, "Oh, I regret doing it." No, we're always like, "Thank
Never.
God I got my butt up and did it."
Yeah, exactly. And I also just want to share a quote that I try to live by. I understand we all have bills to pay, and that's the main drive to go into a job and get the work done. But if you are willing to commit to someone else and someone else's goal, why won't you be willing to commit to yourself and your own goal? Because you do it every single day. Working at a job was somebody else's goal that they put into fruition, that they made happen, and now they have put you in that position to continue making their goal happen. So when you
Hmm.
sit and think, if I can do this for somebody else every single day, what is it that I can do for myself every single day and make the commitment to myself.
I love that. Yeah, and we said this at the beginning of the episode, but you are the longest relationship you're ever going to have in your life. So make it
Yeah.
good. Make it
Yeah,
good.
it's so important. Yeah, it's so
It
important that
is.
you have a good relationship with yourself first because you can't progress in other relationships successfully without having that love and self care and appreciation for yourself, your journey, and the things that you need.
Yeah, and you can't know where you want to go unless you know who you are first.
Yeah, yeah.
We just want to thank everyone for tuning in for episode 7. As always, we are always sending light and love to our audience, and we hope that you took even a little bit of knowledge from today's episode.
Yeah, thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Remember, it's all a journey and we're all on it together. You're not alone in this, so remember to take care of yourself. Thank you guys so much. Love, Naya.
Love, Janessa.
Bye.
Bye.